On Sunday, we will see the Chargers take on the Tennessee Titans in a game in which they could take back control of their own playoff odds. Now, currently, the Chargers, sitting at a 7-6 record, are at the 8th seed in the AFC playoffs. Just one spot out of the playoffs with a very big opportunity to get into the playoffs and make a push, just based on a couple other teams losing a game here or there. And if you want to take a look into a video like that, I already uploaded one earlier this week on the teams and the games you should be rooting for this week. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the Chargers and their keys to success for this week and what they need to do to win this game. So if you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. But let's not waste any more time. Let's go and get right into things. As mentioned, the Chargers at 7-6 will be taking on the Tennessee Titans, who are also currently at 7-6. Now, this game, similar to every single game for the remainder of the season, could be very, very important for the Chargers' playoff hopes. At a 7-6 record, at the 8th seed with the same record as the 7th seed and the 9th seed, there's a lot of things that could transpire through the remainder of the season, and the Chargers need to take full advantage of this opportunity, going against a Titans team that's playing well below expectations and has been struggling a lot as of late. Now, the Chargers not only have been facing a lot of injuries this year, and hopefully it seems like they're starting to turn the corner, but they've been facing a lot of struggles that they're starting to try and figure out, whether that's offensively, defensively. A lot of things have been going on for the Chargers, but none of that matters when you're entering a game like this, a game where you can move to 8-6, potentially take your playoff spot back, and beat a team that really had high expectations entering the year. But what are the important things that the Chargers need to do to be able to be successful in this game? Well, the first topic I kind of want to cover here is talking about one of, if not the most important player in this game, outside maybe Justin Herbert, and that's going to be Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry has become one of the best power running backs in all of NFL history. But not only that, he also has some incredible speed on him. We've seen him be in the top 5 fastest running plays in entire years before. I think a couple years back he had a top 5 rushing play. Derrick Henry is an extremely, extremely dominant running back, and it's something the Chargers need to be prepared for. You're not going to be able to stop him, but you want to be able to hopefully slow him down a little bit. Currently, Derrick Henry sits at 2nd in the league in rushing yards with 1,199, as well as 3rd in the league in rushing touchdowns with 11. With such a top-level running back the Chargers are going to be facing, and the fact that their defense has been very poor, they need to hopefully kind of take control of that and just put a little bit more pressure on the Titans' rushing game. Now, even with Derrick Henry's dominance, the Titans' run game has not been great. They're currently ranked at 16th in the league in rushing yards, which tells you that outside of Derrick Henry, they don't have a whole lot of options to get them a bunch of yards on the ground. Good news for the Chargers, though, is the Titans rank 29th in passing yards. 3 from the bottom of the league. So what that tells you is it's likely that you're going to be able to lean into that run defense a little bit more, load the box a little bit more, bring in some heavier bodies without worrying so much about what's going on out there. And especially because of the fact that the Titans are going to be missing their number 1 wide receiver this week due to injuries. So that is going to take away much, much more from this Titans team. Now, what do the Chargers need to do to bring success? Well, like I mentioned, they need to load the box a little bit more, bring in some more linebackers, use your DBs, your safeties in the box, just bring them a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, and use some bigger bodies. Now, it seems that Sebastian Joseph Day may not be playing quite yet, and Joey Bosa will not, although there was speculations that he may return this week. It seems as if he may not. There's a lot of, question marks still pertaining to the injuries. And Derwin James also seems like he will likely still be out this week, potentially to returning next week. But you still have guys that can fill that need and have plenty of size to hopefully limit the production of Derrick Henry. We've seen Derrick Henry truck large nose tackles before, so there's no weight or size of a player that's going to guarantee you're going to stop Derrick Henry. There isn't. He's a monster out there. But you can hopefully prevent some of these big plays from occurring. Leave Drue Tranquill and K9 in there. They've been great in coverage as well as in run defense for the most part this year, but bring in another linebacker. Bring in 2 linebackers if you need to. Bring some extra, heavyweights in on the line. Leave Khalil Mack out there, but maybe you don't use Chris Rumph. I mean, he hasn't shown a ton of production so far this year, so maybe you take a little bit of risk, use a guy that's, normally on the interior of the line, but has a little bit more quickness than normal, and put him there to bring some more pressure on the run game. But not only that, keep doing what you did last week. Last week we saw a lot of man defense and worked out really, really well, even against a great wide receiver duo in, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Keep doing that. The Titans are missing the number one wide receiver, which means you're going to be playing against a lot more backups. Leave it man on man out there. So you have 1-2 cornerbacks out there, you have your linebackers, and that means that you have 11 players, you have 2 cornerbacks out there manned up. That means you have 9 more players that, 7 of them are loading the box, the other 2 are the safeties, but you can bring them up a little bit more. Get a lot of pressure on there, but don't allow a big play over top. And I think that's the best scenario, is to just put a lot of pressure on that run attack from the Titans, especially Derrick Henry. Really limit them and force them to pass the ball, and then take that away from them, and just try to limit their production right there. And one thing you do have to notice and remember entering this game is Derrick Henry is great at starting slow and getting rolling late. You got to remember that no matter how great this defense does in the first half, they need to remember what the script is. Remember what the game plan is and stick to it, because in the second half, we could see Derrick Henry go off for 100 plus yards and 2 touchdowns very, very quickly. You have to remember what the plan is and stick to it, and that's the best bet for the Chargers, at least against Derrick Henry. Now, the next thing is going to be the fact that the Titans have had a poor defense, especially in regards to their pass defense. The Titans defense is kind of hit or miss for the most part for a good portion of this year. Even with a hard-nosed coach in Mike Vrabel, they haven't, as a team, been able to stick to that. There's no huge hits. They're not bringing a ton of pressure on your quarterback. They're not adding a whole lot of, any specific thing. Now, run defense, they've honestly been pretty solid. They currently rank third best run defense in the entire league, but the Chargers haven't been great on their own rushing attack, so it's not really taking that much away from the Chargers. Austin Ekeler, who is a great running back and likely should be, if not will be, a Pro Bowler this year, but he hasn't produced a lot on the ground, so it's not like the Titans are taking that much away. But through pass defense, the Titans rank 31st. Now, that's terrible. There's 32 teams in the league. You're one team from the bottom. And Justin Herbert just had an incredible game last week passing, in passing yards. Touchdowns, not so much. He only had 1 touchdown. But he had a ton of yards last week. And you're starting to get your guys back. You just got Keenan Allen and Mike Williams back. Mike Williams last week. Gerald Everett's getting back to full strength. Austin Ekeler's there. Joshua Palmer. I mean, everyone's really there except for your O-line, because Rashawn Slater potentially could return towards the end of the year. The offense almost is at 100% health. And Justin Herbert seemed to show that last week with over 350 yards, had like 11 total incompletions and the touchdown. Now, the Chargers have already faced a team with a poor passing defense earlier this year against the Texans. The Texans, at the time, were the 32nd ranked passing defense, the worst in the entire league, and the Titans only sit 1 spot better than the Texans did at that moment. Justin Herbert threw for 340 yards along with 2 touchdowns, and the Chargers offense scored 34 points. That is incredible. The Chargers currently sit somewhere around the mid-20s range for points per game. They've scored 34 against the worst pass defense at the time. And I honestly expect something similar this week. Justin Herbert should be able to take full advantage, and he's definitely got his confidence back and seemed like he's back at full health, as well as most of the offense. Keenan Allen is a huge piece of this offense. We've seen that. But so is Mike Williams. Use those pieces. Use Mike Williams to stretch the field vertically. Use his 50-50 ball to really get some big play opportunities. And then use Keenan Allen in the mid-game to get you your 3rd downs that you need. Get the 4th down conversions that you go for. Use him very productively, because he has an ability to turn, a middle ground play that is a really, really hard catch it and still find a way to get some extra yards. And then in the short game, use guys like Gerald Everett and Austin Ekeler, who have both shown a great ability to turn short plays into big gains. Now, don't only use that as them, because we've already seen that both these guys can be great in the medium to long distance range, as well as Keenan Allen. Use these guys all effectively throughout the whole field instead of focusing only in on their best attribute. But, we can't see Joe Lombardi in this offense really just constantly stick to these dig routes and these short routes all the time, because this offense has enough to be great. So that is the keys to success in this position, is don't lean on the run offense. It hasn't been great already to this point this year, so don't lean on it now when you're going against a top-level rushing defense. Instead, lean on what has been working and lean on it heavily. Use Justin Herbert. Let him use his legs to get out of the pocket and produce plays that are off script. Have Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, Gerald Everett, Joshua Palmer, all of these great offensive pieces to have a good game and work well with each other, and hopefully take some pressure off of that defense a little bit, who will be facing a really strong runner in Derrick Henry, as we already mentioned. So use your passing offense to get some points, and hopefully get those points early to, start getting on a roll, since the Titans, do a really good job, especially with Derrick Henry, at getting some points, getting some energy moving in the second half, no matter what the score is already. Next topic here is still going to be offense, still going to be technically talking about the passing game, and that's going to be Joe Lombardi, hopefully starting to figure it out. It doesn't seem like he has. Last week he called a pretty decent game, but for the most part this year it has been terrible. I'm not gonna say it lightly. And no matter what Joe Lombardi does this year, I don't care if he scores 30+ points for the remainder of the year. I don't think he deserves this job. I think he's holding back this offense, and especially Justin Herbert. He is calling just terrible play after terrible play, dig routes, constant screen plays in the red zone, and the Chargers only scored one red zone touchdown last week, and I think they had like 4 or 5 attempts. He's not done good, but hopefully this week will be the week that he can finally figure it out. He needs to get some stuff going, and this week is the perfect opportunity to get that. Like, as mentioned, the Titans defense, passing at least, is ranked 31st. Use Justin Herbert to his greatest strength and his greatest ability, and call some more deep plays, call some more risky plays, change it up, throw people into motion, throw Justin Herbert out on the wide receiver group like we saw last week. I think it was it Austin Eckler who was technically in the Wildcat? Move some more stuff like that. Take the opportunity that was given to you in a poor defense, passing-wise, from the Titans, and use it and abuse it and get those yards, get those scores, and hopefully do it early and continue it throughout the whole game. I don't care if you're up 3 touchdowns and entering the second half. Keep your foot on the pedal, because things can change very, very quickly. What do the Chargers need to do, and what does Joe Lombardi need to do to see success offensively this week? Well, change up some play calls, stop calling all these dig routes, stop calling all these screen plays, and, just plays that don't make any sense. Stop putting yourself in down and distance yards. We're constantly seeing, 1st and 10, you run just a play that only has like 1 or 2 guys open, you get nothing. 2nd and 10, you run like a inside run, you gain like 3 or 4 yards. Now it's like 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7. I think last week, at least in the third quarter, I don't know what it was at the end of the game, in third down situations, on average, it was a 7 yards to gain. That is terrible. Get yourself in a position where you have a high percentage chance to convert, instead of a spot where you got to gain 7 yards in one play. That's just terrible offensive mechanics. Find a way to score in the red zone, no matter what it is. I don't care if it's constant motions to throw off the defense or just letting Herbert cook. You got to find a way to score in the red zone. Rushing, passing, doesn't matter. Find a way to score, especially when you're constantly getting these opportunities. And, not so many short passes, not so many screens. You have Justin Herbert, a guy who has a strong arm. Let him use it, and, let Herbert cook. That's the keys to success, at least for Joe Lombardi, to, hopefully get some stuff turned around, because I don't see him getting fired before the season ends. So we need to hope that he can figure it out now, especially for the chance that the Chargers do make the playoffs, that it's not such an immediate struggle in the playoffs. And the last topic we're going to cover here before we kind of make our predictions is going to be a defense that it seemed has started to figure out. Now, entering last week's game, the Chargers were missing a ton of key players. Derwin James, Joey Bosa, Sebastian Joseph-Day, Bryce Callahan, a ton of important players were missing, and they seemed to figure it out, especially against a really, really good Dolphins offense. The Dolphins offense, 5 games in a row, had scored 30-plus points. The Chargers held them to, 19 or something like that? Well below what they were getting the past 5 games. They started to figure it out with the heavy lean on man-to-man that worked very effectively against Tyreek Hill and against Jalen Waddle, and using the strengths of the players. You need to lean on that again this week, but especially through the remainder of the season. As mentioned, Derrick Henry is a really, really good running back. Incredible. Definitely top 5 in the league. And their passing game isn't so great. So use Michael Davis similar to how you did last week. Let him be pressed up. Let him use his strength and his speed, which he has plenty of, to hopefully, take away a wide receiver, especially since they're already missing their wide receiver 1. Use that. Zont has been a great coverage guy. Zone, man, doesn't matter. He's been forcing a ton of incompletions and makes it almost impossible to throw to receivers sometimes during the game. Let him do his thing. Let him be man. Let him be zone. Let him limit some things. We even saw Kenneth Murray, K9, and Drew Tranquill do a really good job in coverage. They about had a pick last week. In the same play, they both almost had a pick. They're being a constant presence on the run defense. Kenneth Murray was the highest ranked defense based on, a ranking system. I don't know if it was PFF or who it was. I don't like PFF, but I did see that Kenneth Murray was the highest graded defensive player for the Chargers last week. He's been doing great, and I know a lot of Chargers fans don't really see that. They think it's time for the Chargers to quit on him. I think he's been great, and he really showed it last week. The Chargers need to take full responsibility of, creating turnovers for one. That's the thing the Chargers need to find a way to get back to, doing a consistent basis. But also, taking some pressure off an offense that hasn't been producing, and hopefully that offense will be able to pick it up because of it. But this week, you definitely got to lean on defending that run. If the Titans find a way to beat you in the passing game, which they've been statistically terrible at, good on them. They had a good game. They had a good game plan. But if they destroy you in the run game, which everyone knows that they're really, really good at, then that just shows that you have not been preparing for this team at all. With the Titans having this bad passing game and a pretty solid rushing game, take what you can. Use your solid, if not great level cornerbacks to limit an already poor passing game, and just go all in on stopping the run. That's what you need to focus on. And then, after you do that this week, you start to see some of these players come back. You start to see Sebastian Joseph-Day, Joey Bosa, Derwin James, Bryce Callahan, all these pieces start to come back, and you're going to stick with it. You don't change it up because they're back. If it's working, you stick with it, and you just make these players who have been excellent and have learned to pick up things very quickly, and you move them back into this. That is the keys to success and the things to pay attention most to for this Chargers versus Titans game. But what are my predictions? Now, I don't really like making score predictions. I will say that for the most part, it's almost unpredictable. Last week, the Dolphins game, I think most people were expecting a shootout. We saw quite the opposite. So I don't really like making score predictions. But for the other side of things, I think Herbert will likely throw for somewhere in the range of 300 to 350 yards once again. I think he'll at least have 2 passing touchdowns. Hopefully that will be because Joe Lombardi's presence, but I have a feeling that only one of them will be a red zone touchdown, and the other one will likely be, a bigger play. I think that Keenan Allen is going to have a pretty solid game. Mike Williams had a really good game last week, and while Keenan Allen, I don't know if this is going to be a game that Mike Williams goes off. This just feels like a Keenan Allen-esque type of game where he's going to have over 100 yards and a touchdown. Austin Ekeler, I don't think is going to have a great game on the ground. I think he'll find a way to manage to get somewhere around 50 rushing yards, but I think he'll get a good chunk through the air as well. Defensively, though, I think this defense will hopefully kind of figure it out once more and stick with it. I think the Titans will be held to, about 3 touchdowns, maybe potentially even below that. What is my final prediction, though? I think the Chargers are going to win this. And like I said, I don't like choosing a score, but I will predict one nonetheless. I think it will be 28 to... I still think it's going to be a close game. Somehow all Chargers games are close. I think it's going to be 28-24. I think the Titans will end up with 3 touchdowns and a field goal. I think the Chargers will end up with 4 touchdowns. And I think that's pretty solid. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers score a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans score a little bit more too, especially with, how Chargers seem to do. They don't do good when they're expected to, and they do good when they're not supposed to. But what are your guys' thoughts on this? What do you guys think the final score is going to be, and who do you think is going to be the most important player this week? If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. It truly means the world to me. And as always, I hope you taught something today. Hope it made you smile, but you laughed something really important to me. Affects most day in a great way. And as always, you guys all be safe out there.